So now the plan is we're going to try and make this waterproof. We're going to do that by using epoxy, and then after I epoxy the parts that I'm expecting to be constantly in water, I'm going to spray it with a rubber seal. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's sort of double protection. I'm going to be doing my tests in a bathtub anyway, so if something did go bad, it's not the end of the world, but it gives me the best shot so that nothing leaks and we can do a proper water test. And here we go. Plug this in. Looks like it's pumping. This will be kind of the moment of truth. Is it gonna go? Kind of pulling up on this side quite a bit. It's kind of one of the fears. Come on. Yay! Now does it make it over to the other side? It is! Whoa! I mean, it's barely. Most of it is missing. But I still call that a win. So it looks like it needs to be a lot tighter on the side. Kind of looks like it's going around it. But honestly, that's way better than I was expecting. So kind of twist it around. So since this is in a shower, it's all leaning towards the drain. So turn it around so that most of it is going to be trying to get to here on the high side. So most of this will be filled with water. It's actually doing pretty decent until you come down here. And it looks like most of it is actually going, you know, kind of past the drain. So I'm going to play with it and just see if I can get that working a little bit better. There's potential, but not quite there. Alrighty, so we got it a little bit better, but there's a couple things that are causing this issue that I can think of. So first, these guys right here are printed off at 51%, and the rest was at 50 because these were just too tight of a fit. And so I wanted to make something that I could piece together a lot easier. And I think that really that small gap does make a difference when you're trying to make something have water. It's definitely better. Like you see, there's no dry patches. But I think what we need to do is we need to find a way to kind of seal in here. So either like take this piece right here and have it come around so the water doesn't really have that option, or something that sort of centers this, because like this is kind of twisted a bit. And if a little trickier with the phone, if I turn it, you can see I can kind of get more water coming out. Oh, you're gonna make me a liar, aren't you? You're gonna have to believe me that when I did that, I was able to. So, this is great. The other thing I noticed is it would be kind of nice if I could take a cutout here so that this kind of slides in and it keeps this from twisting. so that it's in nice and tight, and then to take this piece and kind of see if I can find a way to wrap it underneath here so we don't have this action happening. So I think that's going to be our next design change. Alright, so now we finished our print. You can see we have a cutout there, and then another cutout there. And that should hopefully fix our problem, keep things from twisting and everything to fit in nicely. So now we'll just do a quick little assembly. Probably my favorite part. Now with this new piece, it just pushes in, and then it locks in into that corner. Hard to see because it's all black, but alrighty, so now we have the new design set up in the system. I'm not going to throw on that 90 because I think it just creates more of a pain than anything else. And we'll do a test. We're more interested to see if this new design grabs all the water and doesn't leak. Alright, so good news is this is working way better. You can see no water comes over the side. All of the water, although I'm sure that I'm going to regret turning this. Get a little chance to mellow out. All the water comes down there. Right, which is really good actually. Looks like a little bit comes over the side, but that's not really a big deal just because it just goes to the reservoir anyways, right? The majority of the water is all coming over the way it's supposed to. We could probably optimize that a little bit. The biggest concern right now is just I'm pumping way more water than the thing can handle. After a little bit of tweaking, we actually put the 90 back on just because I think it reduces the flow to a little bit more reasonable. You'll see that it's not overflowing on the edge there. And if I can keep this tray level, it really seems like this new design is working really well, doing exactly what we wanted it to do, keeping water from all of the waters coming over. It's not very little is dripping over the other side. It's doing its cycle and it's draining. So that's exactly what we want, although it helps. What I'm realizing more and more is that we have to find a way to keep this from level. Like there's a little more play than there would be normally, and that's because we've made these pieces 51%, everything else 50% scale. And the idea there is we were just having issues with it fitting into, and apart from over engineering each piece and tapering it and all of that stuff, for the purpose of just testing out the concept, it's an easier way of doing it. So there's more play here than there would be in real life. However, the issue with water is it's going to pool in a low area, and what's going to happen is eventually you kind of just get this negative feedback loop. So I'm thinking of almost either putting cables that would just attach from here down to here for each level on both corners. That way it's not very, it doesn't affect the look of it very much. You can hardly notice it, but it forces everything to be level. I think the next plan is, now that we know that this is working for one level, is to start stacking it. Maybe do 2 or 3 levels. Maybe do the maximum. We're going to plan on having 4 levels. So run 4 levels and just see how the whole thing reacts.
So we're back at her. After doing those tests, there's just a few things that a person notices, some more tweaks, but pretty happy with where we're at. One main tweak that I see, I don't really like the way we ended up designing this sort of chunk of it. Actually, I'll put the tray back. Made a mistake there. And water push in. So part of the problem here is that the lowest point that we have in the event that the water was to raise is this sort of opening that we made to hold. And if it were to overflow there, obviously it can leave the system. So that can't be an option. So what I'm thinking of doing is, instead of having the cutout here, I think I want to put the cutout here. Maybe like I could, well, let's just see, have a quick look. Yeah, so I could even raise this a bit so that it comes up and out here. So that keeps everything nice and sliced. This will probably have to get cut out. We'll keep this up high, and I think that will keep this from like being the place where it would leak out. Of course, we still have the issue with this down here, but I think that's going to be okay. By the time it gets to there, if it were to leak, I guess it still could leave. Possibly raising this a little bit higher if we can, as high as we can. It just makes sense to me that that's what we would do. I do like how this sort of gets locked in, but I wish I could find maybe another way of doing that. Perhaps I could even have it lock into our top connector right here. I'm thinking of actually running across here to kind of make a gap so the water can't come back up and around. Water can't really come back up and around here. I'm thinking of making like a little cap. If I was to do that, I could kind of cut a hole here, and that means like this gets locked in here, and then this piece gets locked in by this piece, which, I don't know, in theory might be enough to keep everything nice and straight, and we wouldn't have to do any cutouts like we're doing right now. Anyways, that's what I got. I'm gonna do a little bit of playing around. Well, maybe do a time lapse, or also just be what I finish and enjoy. Whew, that is it. So, might not seem like we did a lot there, but these things are really, really critical when it comes to creating something that's going to assemble really easily, that we reduce our manufacturing costs, and I just really want to put an emphasis on the simplicity of how the system is put together, and it's designed in such a way that it keeps the user from putting it together the wrong way at the same time. So I don't want to get too lost in these kind of things, other than when we do testing, we find something, we try and tweak it. Because, again, we could spend all day here and then we end up changing a massive part of the design and nothing good comes out of it. When we did our test, I think that was the correct way to go about it. We noticed that gap, we fixed that gap, and we found a better way to do it. It's good because now when something overfills, this is kind of the lowest point. You might have seen at the end I was sort of debating whether or not we go around here and cut this out, but because that's sort of getting lost in details, I want to just hold off on that for now. When we do the final kind of touch-ups, that's what we'll do. Obviously, the idea is that in the event that we were to have an overfill, we want it to end up back at our reservoir. So the lowest point should be back into these stands, and then in the event that something were to go wrong for whatever reason, the water is contained. We want to do that in the design, but we don't have to do that right now, so that's why I opted not to. So now that we have the new design, we'll do some more prints, set up another system, and do a test and see if we find something else.
Next round, we have reprinted off all of our trays. We have our special insert here that clips into the back, and we now have 3 levels to try out. Water's been added, everything's kind of been adjusted, so let's see what happens. All right. Come on. All right, coming out. I was a little worried it would be too high, but it looks like it's good so far. It's already looping around, should be coming down here pretty soon. I might actually just rotate this a little so we can look at it. Look at that, so much better. Quick zoom in. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's definitely a lot better. Looks like a little is still missing around the side. In fact, that's actually a terrible place for it to go. So we're going to have to do some optimizing. And it's coming down the next layer too. The problem I see... Oh, sorry. Problem I see is I think it's leaking out the side. Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. Right there. So what's happening? Just see here. So it's coming down the side too far. That's kind of frustrating. I'll have to figure out a way to improve that. I'll do some tweaking. Alright, so we've had it running here for a little while. I'm probably going to leave it for even longer just to kind of see how everything works out. So it's getting better and better, and obviously when we introduce another tier, we're going to find other issues. The problem that I'm finding... Oh, sorry for moving it all over the place. Biggest problem that I'm finding is just that we need a better rate. A lot of it's just kind of going around the side, and we need a way that we capture all that water, that water's reliably coming out to the corner, and that this grabs it all so it doesn't come over, doesn't end up coming over on this side. We also have to find a way to keep it from like overflowing into the side here. That's kind of worst case scenario. So I don't know, back to the drawing board, but it's definitely getting better.
So I think we're going to cut the episode here. We've made actually quite a bit of progress. Here's a final shot of what the system looks like so far. Everything assembled. I think it looks fantastic. Got a lot of potential here. It's just working on these last few tweaks. So look forward to seeing how everything goes. I'm sure you guys do too, and we'll see you in the next episode.